Hey everyone, it's John here, and in this video we're going to take a look at the top 30 quick Excel tips and tricks for beginners. Now if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel for future Excel videos like this one. Now let's get started. In this tip we're going to take a look at how we can create a drop-down list in Excel, and this is going to allow a user to select values from a predefined list. So here we've got a list of sizes and we want the user to be able to select from that list of sizes. So let's create a drop-down list. Let's go up to the Data tab, and in Data Validation we have the ability to add a drop-down list. So right now that cell allows any value to be entered, but we're going to limit it to a list of values. And we can create a comma-separated list here by typing, but we also have the option to get our values from a range in Excel. Let's do that. And let's hit OK. And you can see that we now have this drop-down arrow here, and we have our values in there so we can select from those values. So that's how we can create a drop-down list in Excel. In this tip, we're going to take a look at the fill handle. So the active cell cursor has what's known as a fill handle in the lower right corner. And when you hover your mouse cursor over this, your mouse cursor is going to turn into a small black cross. And we can use this to fill down simple patterns of data in Excel. So here I've got a series of dates increasing by 1 day. We can fill down this pattern. Let's click and drag on the fill handle, and that's going to fill in my series of dates. Here our series is increasing by 1 month. We can click and drag that and fill that down. Here I've just got some numbers. Let's click and drag that and fill it down. Here I've got some even numbers, and we can fill in that pattern as well. We can use the fill handle to copy and paste down formulas. So here I've got a formula that calculates the tax based on this amount. Let's click and drag the fill handle and copy that formula down. Now I'm just going to undo that. Another trick with the fill handle is you can double click, and that's going to fill down to the end of your data here. Now we can also fill in day names. So here I've got Sunday to start with, and if I click and drag that down, I can fill in all the weekday names. We have the same option for months. Let's click and drag that down, and we can fill in all our month names. And we can also fill in patterns based on text and numbers. So here I've got item 1, and if I click and drag that down, I can fill in item 1, 2, 3, and 4, etc. So the fill handle is a very handy feature in Excel. It allows us to quickly fill data down based on simple patterns. In this tip, we're going to take a look at flash fill. So this is going to allow us to perform transformations on our data based on examples that we provide. So here we've got a list of email addresses, and let's say that we wanted to extract the last name from those emails. We can do that pretty easily with flash fill. So let's provide the first couple examples. And when Excel understands the pattern, it's going to fill in the rest of the data for us. So here we can see in light gray Excel's suggested values, and we can accept those by pressing Enter. And there we go, a quick and easy way to extract the last names from those email addresses. Let's just undo that. We can also do the same thing from the Excel ribbon. All we need to do is select our examples and the cells that we want to fill data in, and then go up to the Data tab, and flash fill is right there. And that's going to fill in the values for us. So flash fill is a very quick and easy way to transform your data by example. In this tip, we'll take a look at a quick way to email our workbook as either an Excel file attachment or a PDF attachment. So here's my workbook, and let's say I want to email this to a colleague. then the quickest way to do that is by using a command that we can add to our quick access toolbar. So our quick access toolbar is up here. And the quick access toolbar just allows us to quickly access some of our most frequently used commands. And we can customize this. So let's right click on the quick access toolbar and select customize. And here right now, all the popular commands are being shown. Let's select all commands. And if I click in here and hit E on my keyboard, that's going to take me down to the section where the commands start with E. And if I scroll down a bit, I'll find email. Let's add that into our quick access toolbar, and also email as PDF attachment. Let's add that one as well. And let's hit OK. And we'll see those two new commands in our quick access toolbar. Let's try them out. Let's email this as an attachment. So that's going to create a new email for me and attach the workbook. Let's close this and let's try our email as PDF. And again, here's a new email, and we've converted our Excel workbook into a PDF file, and it's attached here. In this tip, we're going to see how we can auto adjust column widths so that our data fits. So here I've copied in some data, and you can see that we have columns that aren't quite big enough. So if I adjust this, we'll see the data properly. Now we can actually automatically adjust our column widths. So if we go up to this button here and click on that to select the entire sheet, then we can place our cursor in between any of the columns. And if we double click, then that's going to automatically adjust all our column widths so that it fits the data exactly. We can quickly add the current date or current time into a workbook using a keyboard shortcut. So Ctrl and semicolon is going to add the current date into the workbook, and Ctrl Shift semicolon is going to add the current time into the workbook. Now these are going to be static values and they're not going to change or update, but we can add dynamic values with formulas. So we have a function in Excel, the today function, and that's going to return the current date. And this is also going to update whenever the workbook recalculates. Now we have a similar function to get the time. So we have the now function, and that's going to return the current date and time into the workbook. And again, this is going to be dynamic and update whenever the workbook recalculates. In this tip, we're going to take a look at naming a range. So this is going to help with making formulas a lot more readable. So here I've got a tax calculation, and if I press F2, you can see that it references that 7% tax value up there. But if I'm just looking at the formula, then it's not very obvious what this formula is doing. And so what we can do is use a named range instead. So if I select this cell and go up to the name box here, right now it says C2, that's just the cell address. I can actually give it any name I want. So I'm going to call it tax rate, and I can press enter. And now if I rewrite this formula, I can multiply that amount by my tax rate. So I can reference this cell here, and you can see that it's referenced by the name now. And that's going to make the formula a lot more obvious. And we can copy that down. And we see that's an absolute reference now. One thing we can also do is apply any new names to existing formulas. So here I've already got the formula written and it's referencing that cell, but it's referencing it with the cell address. So I can come up to the formula tab, and under define names, I can apply names. So I just need to select my tax rate. And now let's take a look at that formula. We can see that the tax rate name has been applied to that formula. In this tip, we're going to see how we can add some data bars into cells so that we can visualize our numbers a little bit better. So here we've got some revenue, and I want to visualize these revenue numbers. So let's select them. And if we head up into the Home tab, under conditional formatting, we have data bars here, and we have some different color options here. Let's try out this green color. And we can see in cell, we have a nice data bar representation of those numbers. So here our largest number has a full bar, and our smallest number here has a smaller bar. Now these data bars are dynamic, so if these numbers do change, let's just try changing one of these numbers here to something really large. Then we can see that all the data bars here are going to update based on the new numbers. So that's a quick tip on how we can help visualize numbers by adding data bars under conditional formatting. In this tip, we're going to take a look at the quickest way to create a copy of a sheet in a workbook. So we can create a copy by right-clicking on the sheet and then selecting Move or Copy, and then selecting Create a Copy and choosing the location and pressing OK. But there's a much quicker method. So if we hold the Control key and click and drag on any sheet, then you'll see that the mouse cursor now has a sheet with a little plus sign on it, and that indicates that we're going to create a copy. And we also see a little black arrow indicating where we're going to place that copy. And if we release, then we get our copy of our worksheet. So that's the quickest way. Hold Control and click and drag to create a copy. Navigating through an Excel workbook is a big part of using Excel, and learning these keyboard shortcuts is going to speed that up considerably. So the first keyboard shortcut we're going to take a look at is Ctrl End, and that's going to take you to the last used cell in a sheet. So the last used cell is just the intersection of the last used row and column. The next shortcut is Control Home, and that's going to take you to cell A1. We also have some speedy shortcuts for navigating through data. So we can hold Control and use the arrow keys to quickly navigate around data, and that's going to take you to the last used cell in the data set. We can use that same keyboard shortcut to quickly get to the next used cell. So I'm just going to press Control and right arrow, and that's going to take me to the next used cell. And if there is no next used cell, it's going to take me to the end of the workbook. So that's holding Control and using the arrow keys. The last set of keyboard shortcuts is to navigate between sheets. And if we hold Control and use Page Up, then that's going to take us to the next sheet to the left. And Control Page Down is going to take us to the next sheet to the right. So those are essential keyboard shortcuts for navigating an Excel workbook. In this tip, we're going to take a look at how we can quickly add totals to our data using the AutoSum feature. So all we need to do is select the area where we want to add our totals. And I'm just going to hold Control and select this range as well. And with our range selected, we can use the keyboard shortcut Alt equals, and that's going to add in formulas to total up our values. So if we look at one of these, let's press F2 and edit the formula, we can see that it's summing up the values above it. Let's press Escape. And if we take a look at this formula here, let's press F2, we can see that it's summing up the values to the left. Now, if we want to add other types of summary functions instead of a sum, we can go up to the Home tab, and the AutoSum feature is here. And if we click on the arrow to the right, we have the option to add averages, counts, maximums, and minimums as well. So that's the AutoSum feature. It's a quick way to add totals to your data. You can quickly see summary statistics for any range of values that you select. So if I select a couple values here in this table, then down in the status bar, we can actually see the average, count, min, max, and sum. And we can also customize what we see here. If we right click on the status bar, then we can turn on or off various summary statistics. And then only those ones that we have selected will be shown down here. So that's an easy way to see summary statistics for selected data. In this tip, we're going to take a look at how we can clear formatting from a range in Excel. So here someone's made a mess of this data, and I just want to clear out the formatting and start again. I can select my range and go up to the Home tab and use this clear button. And then from here we can choose clear formats, and that's going to get rid of all that formatting. When you select a range of data in Excel, you'll be able to access the quick analysis tools. So this little icon will pop up, and if you click on that, it'll give you access to various features in Excel like conditional formatting. So we can quickly add various types of conditional formatting to our data. We can create different types of charts or add grand totals to our data, and also turn our data into an Excel table or a pivot table, or add Sparklines, little mini charts to our data as well. So that's the quick analysis tools, which give you quick access to various useful features to help you analyze your data. In this tip, we're going to take a look at how we can keep selected rows and columns visible in our worksheet at all times. So if we have a large set of data like this, usually we'll want to see the column headers at all times. And if we scroll around in our data set, they'll become hidden. And in this case, I want to see the first column here that contains the film title. But if we scroll over, then that's going to be hidden as well. So to keep these visible, we can use freeze panes. And first, what we need to do is select the cell just below the row we want visible, and just to the right of the column we want visible. So for me, that will be this cell here. And then we can go up to the View tab and use the freeze panes command here. Now, if we just wanted the top row or first column visible, we could use these commands here, but we're going to use this freeze panes command to keep the row and column visible. And now when we scroll around, notice our column headers are still visible. And if we scroll to the right, our first row remains visible as well. So that's the freeze panes command to keep rows or columns visible at all times. In this tip, we're going to take a look at how we can quickly transpose data. So here we've got some sales figures, and we've got months going across the columns, and then the region going down the rows. And let's say we wanted to reformat this, so we want the months going down the rows and then the regions going across the columns instead. So in other words, we want to convert our columns to rows and our rows to columns. Then we can do that with Paste Special Transpose. So let's select our data, and if we copy it with Ctrl C, or up in the Home tab, we can copy there. Then let's go to a new location, and up in the Home tab again, let's paste, and we're going to use the Paste Special option down here. And we have a variety of options. We want to paste everything, but we also want to transpose our data. Let's press OK. And there we go. We have our months going down the rows and our regions going across the columns now. There's also a really handy keyboard shortcut for Paste Special, and that's Ctrl Alt V, and that's going to bring up our Paste Special dialog box. In this tip, we'll see how we can set a default save location for our Excel files. So this is a brand new workbook, and I haven't saved it yet. So if I go up to save it, then I'm going to be prompted to tell Excel where I want to save this. And right now the default is set to OneDrive, but maybe I have a location that I'm always going to be saving my files, and so I don't want to be navigating to that each time. Let's cancel this. We can set a default save location by going to the File tab and going to Options, and under the Save options we can set a default file location here, and we can paste in our new location. So let's say I want to save it in the demo file on my desktop, and I'm going to enable this option to save to my computer by default, and I can press OK. And now if I try and save this, then that's going to be the default location for me. In this tip, we're going to see how we can avoid pasting blank values from a range. So I've got two ranges here of values, and we have blank values in both. And what I want to do is copy these values into the blank areas here in this range. Now, if I just select this entire range here and copy and paste, then I end up overwriting this range. So I've copied the blank values from this range into this range as well. And that's not what I want to do. So there is actually a command for us that we can avoid pasting these blank values. So let's just undo this. And instead what we're going to do is go to the Home tab, Paste Special, and there's an option here to skip blanks. Let's choose that and press OK. And there we go. So you can see that we've managed to avoid pasting these blank values into this range here, but we've still pasted our values that weren't blank into the range. So that's Paste Special, Skip Blanks. In this tip, we'll see how we can quickly create absolute references in our formulas. So if I create a formula to calculate the tax, so I'm going to multiply the amount in this column by the tax rate here. Then this is a relative reference. So if I copy this down, then what's going to happen is the ranges that I'm referencing in the formula are going to move with the formula. So the formula always references the range one cell to the left and two cells above. Let's just press Escape and let's undo that. Instead, what we want to do is create an absolute reference for our tax value, and we can do that pretty easily. So let's create our formula, this times our tax rate. And now to create an absolute reference for cell C2, I'm going to press F4 on the keyboard, and you can see that Excel inserts a couple dollar signs. So those indicate that the column and row are an absolute reference and won't change when I copy the formula around. Now, if we press F4 again, then it's going to create a partially relative reference. So column C is relative, but row 2 is absolute. And if I press it again, we get column C is an absolute reference and row 2 is relative reference. And again, we're back to the regular relative reference. So that's F4 to create an absolute reference. And now if we copy this down, then we can see that this reference here has remained absolute. Now we can do the same thing when referencing ranges. So let's just create a formula that references this entire range. And again, F4 will cycle through the various options for relative and absolute ranges. And now if we copy this over, we can see that that range has remained the same. So that's F4 to cycle through all the relative and absolute reference options. In this tip, we're going to see how we can merge values in separate cells into a single cell. So here I've got 4 values and I want to have these in a single cell. So we can do that up in the Home tab. Under Fill, there's an option here, Justify. Let's try that out. And you can see that it's almost got what we want. So it's added the first 2 into one cell and the last 2 into a second cell. Let's just undo this. What we actually need to do is give Excel enough room in this column to fill the entire thing in one cell. So let's select our values again. Let's go back to Fill Justify and try that out. And you can see that Excel has added all those values into a single cell, and it's even added spaces in between each value. So that's Fill Justify to merge values into a single cell. In this tip, we're going to take a look at how we can quickly copy chart formatting from one chart to another. So here we've got 2 different charts, and they've been formatted quite differently. So they've got different fonts and colors And this one's got labeling and this one doesn't. And let's say we wanted to create this chart to match this chart. Then we can select this chart here and go up to the Home tab and copy it. And then select our other chart here. Go back up to the Home tab and paste special. And we can select just the formats and press OK. And you can see that we've got our chart, and all the formatting from the previous chart has been copied over into this chart here. So we can use paste special to quickly copy chart formatting from one chart to the next. Excel's ribbon commands can take up a lot of room on screen, and if you want, you can actually hide the ribbon so that you have more room to view your spreadsheet. So you can do that pretty quickly with a double click on any of the tab headings up here. If you double click, that's going to hide the ribbon. And of course, you can double click to show it back again. If you're in a workbook that has a lot of sheets, then navigating between those sheets can be difficult. But Excel has a handy feature that allows you to see all your sheets and then navigate quickly to any one of them. So down in the left-hand corner here, we have two arrows. If we right-click any of those, then that's going to open up this window here that lists out all the sheets available. And you can select any one of them and hit OK. Or just double click on it and it's going to take you to that sheet. In this tip, we're going to take a look at the Go To Special command. So this allows you to select cells based on certain criteria. So for example, we can select all cells with a formula or blank cells, etc. First, we just need to select the range of cells that we want to look in. Let's select our data here. And then up in the Home tab, under Find and Select, we have this option here, Go To Special. That's going to open up this Go To Special dialog box, and we can select various options from here. So for example, we can select all constant values. Let's try that out. And that selects all the hard-coded values in that range for us. Let's select our range again. We also have a keyboard shortcut, Ctrl G. That's going to open up the Go To dialog box, and we can click on Special from there and open up Go To Special. Let's try formulas. And here are all our formulas in that range. Let's go back up to the Home tab and Go To Special. And we can also select blanks. This is a very useful command. Let's try that one out. And it's selected our two blank cells in that range. So that's the Go To Special command. It allows you to select cells in a given range based on certain criterias, like whether they are blank cells, have formulas, or constant values, etc. In this tip, we'll take a look at using Ctrl Enter to enter multiple values or formulas into cells. So here we've got some sales data, and we've got sales for vests in various different regions. And the first value has been entered, but the values underneath have not. And we want to fill that down, so we want vests to appear everywhere here, and then gloves to appear everywhere here, etc. We can use Ctrl Enter to quickly do that for us. So first we're going to use our Go To Special trick to go to all the blank cells. Let's select the entire range. And let's use Ctrl G, and let's go to Special, and let's go to those blank cells. And now let's use a formula. Let's type equals, and then let's just reference the cell above. And instead of hitting Enter, let's hit Ctrl Enter. And with all those cells selected, it's going to add that same formula in all the blank cells for us. Now we can just copy and paste this as values. Let's Ctrl C and copy, Ctrl Alt V, and paste those as values. Now we can do the same thing with values instead of formulas. So here we've got blank cells, and we want to add zeros in there instead of blank cells. Let's select our entire range, Ctrl G, Go To Special, select those blank cells. And here I'm going to type 0. And then again, Ctrl Enter, and we're going to enter 0 into all those blank cells. So that's Ctrl Enter for entering multiple values or formulas into selected cells. In this tip, we'll take a look at how we can show all the formulas in a sheet at the same time. So if we head up into the Formulas tab, we have this option to show formulas, and we can click on that, and you can see that we can now view all the formulas simultaneously that are in our sheet. And when we select any one of them, we can also see the preceding values that this formula depends on. Now we can click this again, and this will show the values that the formula calculates to. And we also have a keyboard shortcut for this, so Ctrl tilde will show the formulas, and Ctrl tilde again will toggle back to values. When you press F2, you can enter edit mode and edit your formulas. And while you're editing your formulas, Excel is going to highlight the ranges of values that the formula depends on. And you can actually adjust these ranges by clicking and dragging them. So for example, we can adjust this range by clicking and dragging any of the corners, and we can change the size of that range. And we can also click and drag any edge to move the range around. Let's press Enter. And we can copy that new formula down. Let's press F2 again. And here we want to adjust this range to include April. Let's click and drag that over and increase the range. And copy that formula down now. So that's an easy way to edit your formulas. You can adjust the ranges in those formulas by clicking and dragging them. In this tip, we'll see how we can highlight duplicate values in our data. So first, let's select our range of values. And if we go up to the Home tab, under Conditional Formatting, we have Highlight Cells rules, and we can highlight duplicate values. Let's try that. Here we have options to highlight either duplicates or unique values. And then we can choose what formatting we want. We can also apply custom formatting. Let's press OK. And here we can see our duplicate values highlighted. So we have Mazda and Subaru listed twice in our list. Now this is dynamic, so if our data changes, then our formatting is going to update to reflect that. So let's say that we now have Ford here instead, then both those values are going to be highlighted as well. In this tip, we're going to take a look at Sparklines. So Sparklines are just tiny graphs that fit into a single cell, and they're great for showing a trend in a set of numbers. So I want to show the trend for this set of sales here. Let's select a cell to add our sparkline into. And if we go up into the Insert tab, we have a section called Sparklines right here. Let's try inserting a line. And we need to pick the data range. So that's going to be our set of sales here. And we want our sparkline in cell 03, that's fine. Let's press OK. And you can see that we have a little mini graph of our sales. Let's copy that down. And when we have our sparkline selected, we get a new tab in our ribbon. So we have a sparkline tab here. And you can add a couple options. So you can change the color of the sparkline. And you can also add markers. So we can add a marker for the high point. Let's add that as a green marker. And for the low point, let's add that as a red marker. And these are dynamic, so if we change the cell size here, let's increase that a little bit. Then those are going to change to fit the new dimensions of the cell. Let's go back to our sparkline. Let's try out the column graph. And we also have this win-loss graph. The data we have doesn't really work for this. So let's go back to our column graph. And if any of our data changes, our sparklines are going to change to reflect that. So let's try changing this value here. And we can see the sparkline graph updates to reflect that change. So now we have our maximum value displayed right here. So sparklines are a cool way to visualize your data with a miniature graph. In this tip, we'll take a look at how we can group sheets together to perform the same edit across multiple sheets. So here I've got a couple sheets set up, and they're set up very similar, except for they have different data in them. And I want to change all three of these in the same way, We can do that by grouping the sheets together first. So if I select the first sheet and hold Ctrl and select the other sheets, then I can make the changes in the current sheet. So let's change this title from January to sales. Let's also copy this row down and change this to central. And I'm going to delete this value here. And let's add a total. Press enter. And let's also fix these row heights here. Now let's take a look at the other sheets. We can see that that change has been made on those sheets as well. Now we can ungroup these sheets just by selecting another sheet or by right-clicking on them and ungroup sheets. So that's how you can perform the same edits across multiple sheets by grouping the sheets together first. So there you have it, the top 30 quick Excel tips and tricks for beginners. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for future Excel videos like this one, and we'll see you in the next video.